Hey, it's Dan, and welcome to Unified Gaming. So in this one, I want to share with you Frostbite, the 1-bar version. This is hands down the best 1-bar PvP magicka warden you will find out there. The damage is ridiculously high, we have crazy high health, thus really big healing, and awesome sustain. Our defense is also really good, and it honestly just does it all. I've used this in Battlegrounds extensively, as well as Cyrodiil on stream, so you can go check those out on the live tab. And I've also got some gameplay coming out, so do subscribe so you don't miss out on that. As for my videos, if you like what I do here, then obviously likes and comments really helps. And I want to say a massive thanks to everyone at Patreon who helped make the videos possible. If you want to support myself, the details down below. But for this, in order to make this work, you need to go and make sure that you are one of the following races. You want to either be a Dark Elf, a High Elf, a Breton, or an Argonian. Each has its own kind of niche. Dark Elf is one of the better races, as we are a vampire, and you get access to resist flame. You also get extra weapon and spell damage, which we can push higher with just our Oaken Soul. And we have magicka and stamina buff, which again is really helpful for hybrid type builds. That said, I use a Breton on live and it works completely fine. If I were to change it, I would go with Dark Elf personally, but you know, Crowns, it's not worth the change in all honesty. So any of those races will be great. High Elf, Breton, Dark Elf, you get the idea. As for the attributes, we've gone with all in health. And you're probably thinking, like, why? Just buffing up quickly, you can see our health goes to a tasty 38,800, almost 39k. Our spell damage is 4,000, our max resource is 20 odd k. Our armor does go higher and higher still, so when we are buffed, we've got that resistances, and we've got blood spawn that you can see, which will make it go higher still. So it's like 28k physical, spell, sorry, and 27k physical. We are a vampire stage 3, so the stat page is pretty respectable. And that penetration obviously gets pushed higher because we use Deep Fissure with 9,000 pen. So 16,000 pen is really good. With this attributes, we go with all health simply because we use a skill called Polar Wind, which is your burst heal. And in order for this to work, you do need to have more health. As of the Gold Road chapter, we can change this, which I'll show in this video too. As you'll see, this is all on the PTS, so you can see the numbers min-max to the T. For my Mundus Stone, I am using the Lover Mundus. This gives us more penetration, which is great. But if you play in Battlegrounds, for example, or no CP, then you will probably want to go and change this to the Atronach and get a bit more sustain if you need. That is personal choice. As for the consumables, we are using the following. We have Smoked Bear Haunch. This is really good. It's max health and in stam and mag recovery, so very friendly in PvP. The cheaper version is Jewels of Misrule. If you are playing no CP Battlegrounds, for example, then something like Clockwork Citrus Fillet is good because it gives you a bit more damage. It does lose a bit of stam recovery, but you can change that with just a few skill changes and you won't have any issues. Or you could go with Tri-Stat glyphs and just know that you have to heavy attack every now and again. And obviously the cheaper version of Citrus Fillet is Witchmother's Potent Brew. We then use Tri-Potions always. They give us everything we need. It's health, magic, stamina. If something goes wrong, just use this and a heal and you're good to go. Equally, if you're out of resources, will get you out of trouble, and it will also get you out of being stun locked if you have this ready, because you can use this and then roll dodge to escape. So really good potion, very versatile. I'm going to go through the skills now and also the champion points. I'm going to do the CP first because it does impact how the skills look, so that's just important to note. For my CP, I do use this in Cyrodiil. There's videos on the channel, in the live tab there's loads of gameplay. But we use Focus Mending because this offsets one of the sets we use, so this is really important. I then have Master at Arms, Deadly Aim, and Ironclad. If you need a bit more defense, because we do have slightly lower resistances, you could then change Deadly Aim, for example, and use Duelist Rebuff. This will make you really tanky. You would have slightly less damage, but it's not, you know, I don't find it a problem personally. You'll see in the live tab, I've used this in Cyrodiil, absolutely fine with no issues. For the red ones, I have the following. Pain's Refuge. This gives us just more defense. Sustained by Suffering, more sustain. Survival Instincts makes Sprint, Roll Dodge, Break Free cheaper. And then Celerity. This is for more movement speed, which is really helpful in PvP. Speed is king. If you can move around and you don't get hit, you're going to stay alive. It's that simple. That said, if you don't want to run this because you want to run a bit more defense, you could go with something like Slippery. This will give you a free CC break, which is very good. Fortified for more armor. Boundless Vitality for more max health, which will increase with minor toughness as a warden, plus it buffs our heals, so this is a good option too. Expert evasion gives us a roll dodge for free, or you could go with something like Bastion, which means we do more damage to shields, so you can help sorcerers a bit more, and this will obviously just help your damage output. So that last one, that celerity, could be changed to something you need to just tweak it to your playstyle. And for the green ones, Steed's Blessing and just whatever you like. Just pick whatever will help you to play how you like. I'm going to go through the skills now, and with the skills, note that I'm recording this part of the video on the PTS so you can see what some of the scribing options could do to the build if we were to make this next patch. All the skills currently I use as they are on the live server, absolutely fine. For the skills, we have False Shock, Deep Fissure, Polar Wind, Resolve and Vigour, Deceptive Predator, and Dawnbreaker of Smiting. The reason I wanted to show the CP first is that our heals are slightly higher tooltips, but that's because of one of the sets that does impact it. So the CP helps just fix that, so that's why we have to show the CP first. You might notice False Shock is not morphed. False Shock is in the Destruction Staff, and you zap people with all elements and you do damage. Now you can morph this to whatever you like. Me personally on the live server, I use False Pulse. False Pulse deals damage to nearby enemies who are affected with a status effect. And as you'll see with the gear in a little bit, we proc status effects all the time. Which means if people are bunched together, we hit target 1 and then we go to hit target 1 again, but we miss and hit target 2. This bottom part, up to 2 nearby enemies will take this damage, will then apply. So this helps us have some cleave damage, and it's around the player. It's an 8-meter radius, so it's pretty big. So this is really, really good on this build. I personally prefer this one for Battlegrounds. If I'm trying to 1vx or go against people in Cyrodiil, Crushing Shock is also very nice because it interrupts people with channels, so Radiant Oppression, Radiant Glory, Dark Deal. It also interrupts people resurrecting. So this can be very good in Cyrodiil where people do those things much more than they do in, say, Battlegrounds. So False Pulse for Battlegrounds personally, Crushing Shock for Cyrodiil, but I just keep False Pulse for both. That's just my personal choice. We then use Deep Fissure because it does give us Major and Minor Breach. So that's 6,000 plus 3,000, 9,000 penetration. With our penetration, it's 7,000 here, 7,700, so you're looking like 16,700 roughly. So we have a lot of penetration on this build. Polar Wind is used as our burst heal. I have tried with different variations to use Arctic Blast. Arctic Blast is great, but we don't have a good enough heal. The issue is Arctic Blast needs you to stack your damage to like 7,000-8,000 spell damage, and you can't get that easily, especially on a 1-bar build. So in order to get a tooltip this large, bear in mind with our toughness it goes up even further, you do need to have high health. So that's why we use this, because it's give us a big burst heal and a really good heal over time. 3,500 every 2 seconds is great, and it hits you and allies, so this is great. I then use Resolve and Vigour. This is another heal over time, and it also is an armor buff. But you'll see in the gameplay, I do sometimes swap this out for Living Trellis, because I can chuck this on an ally and on me. So this can give me a mini burst heal. It can also give me more heal over time. And when you compare the two values, this is actually more healing than Vigour, because it's 2,400, so 24,000 if you proc it every second, plus this 6,000, so 30,000. This is a better heal than Vigour, but you don't get the armor buff. The advantage with this is that you can also use this on allies and proc Nature's Gift, giving you extra sustain. So again, this is also really good for group play. Please note that this does proc quite easily with just other stuff in the kit, so just factor that in. Me personally, if I go into Cyrodiil, or when I would use probably Vigour, and if I go into Battlegrounds, Vigour. If I go into small scale and with other people, I'd use Trellis. So Trellis is kind of more for group play, Vigour is more for solo. If you are dueling, the last skill, Deceptive Predator, can be changed for Vigour, and what you then have is 3 heals, and this is really good, because you have really big heal plus heal over time plus another heal over time. If you rotate these 3 things, you can duel people and stay alive for absolutely ages. It's a really, really strong combo. If you are playing in Battlegrounds though, or Cyrodiil, you will probably want Deceptive Predator to help you get around the battlefield. It gives you minor evasion, reducing your damage taken from AoEs. That basically means most ultimates in this game are AoE, Dawnbreaker, Leap. You get the idea. lots of them are AoE, so this really helps with that damage reduction. Plus it gives us movement speed when we need, and snare immunity. So really good skill here. If you do find that you need a bit more stun power and to get a bit more out, Shimmering Shield is very good because it gives us major heroism, and this can really help us get Dawnbreakers out really fast. So I will sometimes switch this out as well. So what I would suggest with this RB skill, this 5th skill, is it's a flex spot. You change this based on what you need in that moment. If you need a bit more, ult dump power, go with Dawnbreaker and use Shimmering Shield. You'll get more ults out a lot quicker. If you need a bit more healing, go for Vigor. If you need some movement skills, then go for Deceptive Predator. But that's kind of how these work. I'm going to go through the gear, and then I will show at the end some scribe skills that you could add to this build for next patch if you want to really take this forward too. But obviously note that they might change depending on the PTS. This is obviously week 4 of the PTS, so it shouldn't change massively. As with our sets, we are using the following. I have the Asylum Ice Staff. This is phenomenal. Every second cast of Force Shock will always apply Burning, Concussed and Chilled. This procs those status effects twice in a second, because your charge here can proc those status effects anyway with Force Pulse. And then what you then have is obviously this proc on top. So the way in which the game works is that it will check, have you procced a status effect with the charged? And if it's a yes, it then applies it. And it then checks after that, have you applied it with the set? And then yes. And if both those are yes, you get 1-2 hits within the same second. So this gives you a lot of extra sustained damage, a lot more than it actually looks like. So this is really powerful. You have to use charged on this in all honesty, and it doesn't need to be perfected. On the live server, I just run the normal version, which means we do lose this 103 spell damage, but it's not noticeable. So if you can get the normal one, which is a lot easier to find, in my opinion, do get that. And if you can get the perfected, then go for it. With the glyph, we are using Poisoned. Poison will apply a status effect, and because we use charge, this is a 100% proc chance. So in a 1v1, this is always up. If you want to reduce their healing though, you could change this to disease. This will give you a bit more healing reduction, which can be quite nice. I kind of go between the two. I find Poison's probably slightly edges it out for execute scaling, but the disease is more useful for executing people if they cleanse a lot. So if they're using lots of heals and stacking, this works better. But if they're not healing, then Poison is better. So it's kind of up to you. For the monster set, it's Bloodspawn. This will give us ultimate generation. It will give us armor, and it gives us stand recovery. This basically is up all the time. Because although it's a 6% chance, when you have status effects on you, so like burning, chilled, concussed, they proc, every 2 seconds. You got an 18% chance of in effect. And the way in which this works is the more damage you take, which you will, the higher uptime you get on this. So this is up like 80% of the fight. It's really high uptime. So really good set. I have tried other sets like Hrothgar, you'll see in the gameplay. I've also tried Kalamak's Nightmare. I've also tried things like just one Shadow Ren, one Magma, and just very one pieces for just sustain. I find this is the best set for what we need. If you wanted to add a healing set like Chokerthorn, that would also work really well, but it doesn't work well in Cyrodiil, so I find this is like the best all-rounder. For the chest, we are using Trainee, and we use Trainee also on the legs. So it's 2 Bloodspawn, 2 Trainee, and then 5 Drogokin's Grip. Drogokin's Grip is really good. It gives you max just stats, damage, and recovery, but it increases your damage by 330. We do lose 10% healing though, so that's why we have that CP, that Focus Mending, to offset this. And what Drogokin's Grip does really well is that this 330 applies to any damage source. Your status ticks, your poisons, your spammables, your skills. Anything that you do to do damage, this will apply to it. This value is also added on tooltips as well, so just do factor that in. But what that actually means, if we go to just a dummy, is that we can proc lots and lots of damage really quickly. So you can see all those damage numbers by when we weave, and that every other hit we are proccing all those status effects, and they are hitting hard. And then if you want to look at it on combat metrics, you will see that, for example, our chilled, it's averaging 3,200, 5,000 crits. Now obviously in PvP this is halved and then reduced again, but in PvP this is hitting people for over 1,000. Burden is hitting people over 1,000. Concuss is hitting people over 1,000. Poisoned is hitting people for around 800 in PvP. So you got like 1 to 3,000 extra on your Force Pulse hit, which what means is that when you weave this hits really freaking hard with Dragokins because of those status procs, and that's why this set is so good. If you use something like Serpent's Disdain doesn't increase the damage of your status effects, so some people recommend it, but the problem is though that Serpent's Disdain only increases the duration, not the damage, and this does the damage, and that's what we need. This is more burst, it's more sustained pressure, it is a better set. We then pair this all with Oakensoul. We have infused on all the jewellery with 2 regen and 1 spell damage. If you need extra sustain, add on an extra spell damage recovery, sorry. If your damage and your sustain kind of are how you like them, you want to get a bit more damage, then obviously add in more damage glyphs on here. Equally, if you do want to go and have a bit more stam sustain, you can add in the multi recovery, so the prismatic regens, and this will also give you magic and stamina recovery. So this can be quite nice too. As with the loadout, it is a medium head, medium shoulders, light waist, light hands and light feet, and then heavy legs and heavy chest. This is min-maxing the resistances for the damage that we can get out, and we have reinforced on the chest and the legs and impen on everything else. As you get more familiar with the build, you can add in some well fitted, but I would keep the reinforced on the chest and the legs because that really helps. And obviously if your neck and your ring for Dragokin are not infused, they are arcane, that's also fine, it will still work. Infused just works more versatile in other builds. So that's kind of the build in itself, how it works, the CP, the sets, everything. And as I alluded to in the video, we are a vampire as well. Vampire stage 3 gives us undeath. If you are a vampire, you could also use Elusive Myths instead of Deceptive Predator as a kind of streak to get around a bit quicker. It will give you a major evasion, which makes you tankier from AoE skills again, so this is quite nice. And you get movement speed and you also dodge projectiles. Me personally, I don't think it's worth it, but it's personal choice. The last thing I want to do is show you kind of how this works on the PTS, and if you want to change some skills to just tweak this playstyle. One of the skills you may want to consider changing with the new scribing system. Is to use the soul magic and go to healing soul. This is wield soul, and we change this to a burst heal. This will scale off your damage. It will give you 11,000 heal, it gives you major vitality, and it will restore resources. This is cheaper than Polar Wind because you get 1,000 resource back. You also get major vitality. This scales off damage. So next patch you may want to drop this and run this instead of Polar Wind. If you do this though, you then want to change your attributes and go much more into magicka and increase your spell damage. So then at this point you drop your health to like 32 and magicka to 32 to increase that heal tooltip. But you won't get the heal over time that the Polar Wind does have with it. Also the AoE component that heals allies as well. The other option you could do if you want to have an AoE heal is to go with Healing Torch. This is the Fighters Guild Torchbearer skill. This will have 3 strikes, so although it's 6,000, it hits 3 times, so it's 18,000. You get 30% damage reduction and major minor vitality. So again, this can become quite a good heal. It's you and allies. So you'll see it's 6,000 each hit. So 3k in PvP. 2-second channel. So this might be another option. And again, this scales with damage. So if you want to try and use stamina as your heal source for next patch, you could do that. You'll then have to just change some of your regens, go to your jewelry, and consider swapping these for prismatics as I showed earlier, to then help pay for that resource. Beyond that, the actual damage skills from scribing don't give you enough to make this different. You want to keep False Pulse, you want to keep Deep Fissure, you want to keep an Ice Staff. And then you need a movement skill, you need obviously a heal over time, you need a stun, Dawnbreaker. So you can only really change your burst heal with this setup with scribing, that's about it. So that's kind of the build. It's a lot longer than usual. I've gone into much more detail and also showed some of the new changes for next patch. If you do like that kind of change and me kind of showing you what you could do in the future patches with the builds on the PTS, then do let me know in the comments below. But as always, I want to say a massive thanks to everybody who supports with likes, comments, shares and subscribes. but a bigger thank you to everyone at Patreon who get early access and much more. If you want to support, there's details down below. But as always, I'll catch you in the next video or on the next stream. So thanks for watching, guys. Take care and bye.